We live with another episode for the love of the game. It's your host Larry Webb with my two co-hosts Zay and RJ, and a friend of the show, Mad Dog Mike. What it do?
Doing
What
good,
it
man. How
do?
about y'all?
What it do? What it do? Go Vols, man. You know what time it is.
Zay, he's somewhere. Um, he'll be connecting real soon. I don't know. And man, we got a special guest here today, man. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, for a while. Mr. Eddie Rojas, man, the man himself, the man with the plan, the successor, entrepreneur, former Gator baseball player, businessman, on his own company. He's proud of you being a Gator, proud of what you done, everything, man. Tell the people what's up.
Hey, thank you so much for that nice intro. Man, being a Gator has been great to me. I could bore you guys with the details on my life and what it's done for my life, but it's funny. Obviously, I started the Gator Collective, the first NIL in Gator history. But the most amazing thing to me is just to be a fan and to be part of the fandom that is the SEC and the Florida Gators and all the competitive aspects to being following the team and taking my kids to the game and teaching them about the pageantry and the excitement and the down times, which we've had a lot of those, right? And the great times. I'm pleased to say in my life, I watched our team win 3 national championships, go to 4 national titles in football. I watched our basketball team win 2 national championships and go to 3 national championships. They went to school when I was in school, and I was going to school with Udonis Haslam and Mike Miller and Teddy Dupay and that team. And in baseball, I watched my baseball team win a natty, and then I watched them lose this year in the national championship. So, man, being a Gator spoiled me. But we always remember the hard times too. The shoe that flew through the swamp against LSU. And some of those other games that just were heartbreaking that we've experienced over the years. But man, all in all, my life as a Gator has been amazing. Most of you guys know I own a financial advising firm. I don't even think I took a math class when I went to school in Florida, to be honest, which is kind of interesting, but that's how life comes at you, right? You kind of learn stuff as you go. And today, manage a financial advising firm, manage about $4 billion, a few million investors nationwide that we invest their money for them with stocks, bonds, and Wall Street. So, but yeah, let's get into it. Whatever you guys want to talk about, let's go.
Oh man, that's great, Brett. That's great. So how you end up just starting your let's tell you're originally from New York City, right?
Yeah, Brooklyn, New York. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So not Marcy Projects though, right?
Nah, my mom was born in the Marlboro Projects. And I was born in Prospect Park, which at the time wasn't nice Prospect Park. It wasn't so as nice as now. And then, we moved. So I was the youngest of 3 boys, single mom. My mom had an 8th grade education. She would, she struggled. She was one of 10 children. I was the first generation born in the United States. My mom was born in Puerto Rico. My dad was born in Puerto Rico. And so, but I was first generation born in the States. But, as a kid, when you grow up in the city and you don't have really money or anything like that, what do, man? You gravitate towards sports. So, like everybody else on my block, we played basketball every day. We played we'd go to the yard, play baseball. Everyone was big Yankees fans and that kind of thing. And then we'd watch our New York Knicks, and I became a Giants fan. So baseball was the thing I started getting real good at a young age. I loved football too, but it just, when you're at the time, it's very different than today. When you grow up in Brooklyn, New York, football, while we love football, you kind of play basketball or baseball more. Basketball is probably number 1 up in the city. And so that's why I took to that. Started getting really good. So all these business guys would want me on their travel team, and that kind of got me out of the city a lot. And so I'd end up going to I play AAU, Junior Olympics. And so I'd go to Tennessee and was picked up, and these rich guys would pay for my plane ticket and all that stuff. And then came to one tournament in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Would never be able to afford to come down here otherwise. And then it was funny because I was a starting pitcher for the New York State team, and we were playing Puerto Rico in round 1 of the tournament, and I struck out 16 and threw a shutout against Puerto Rico. And there was a college coach walking around. I was 14 at the time. And that's when University of Miami was the first team to recruit me. They flew up. They sent me on a recruiting visit to Miami. They liked me a lot. And then other teams started coming on board. And then I ended up, I was going to go to Miami up until August. And then I didn't have enough money because they don't give you full rides in baseball like they do in football. Because of Title IX, there's only 11.2 scholarships for every 50 players. So you get like books, so you get some. And so instead I went to UCF, and that's where I played my freshman year. But like a lot of these kids, and this is a great story, like a lot of these kids, I got cut after my freshman year at UCF. They took my scholarship away, and I had nowhere to go. My mom luckily moved to Orlando at the time because I was her last son. So she moved here. And so I didn't even know if I was ever going to play baseball again after my freshman year. And so I had nowhere to go, really. I had no apartment or anything like that. And then my buddy was going up to Fellowship of Christian Athletes camp. And they said, hey, they're looking for camp counselors at FCA camp. And you have a place to live for the summer, and they'll give you like food and all that if you'll be a camp counselor. I said, shoot, when are we leaving? So we went up to North Carolina, the Blue Ridge Mountains, and the guest speaker was Danny Werfel. And so I got to meet Danny Werfel and met a girl while I was there with her family. And her dad was the assistant head coach to Steve Spurrier. And so that kind of was my first introduction to Florida, University of Florida. And so I was telemarketing at night. And then I was like, you know what? I got the itch to play baseball. I know I'm good. I know I can play again. So I started working out in the off season and let my girlfriend's dad put in a word with the baseball coach. And he kind of was like, hey, I know this kid. I can't really say if he's good or bad, but maybe you give a look at him. And so he had this guy work out with me in Orlando. The guy's name was David Eckstein, who went on to win the World Series MVP for the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't know if you guys know David Eckstein, but so that's kind of how I ended up walking on to the baseball team for the Florida Gators. Graduated from Valencia with an AA, was a walk-on, but I came on as the 25th pitcher out of 25 pitchers. So I was never going to see the field. From there, but I was motivated at this time. I was a junior. I already got cut once. I shaved my head. I got my body down to about 4% body fat. And from there, I was like, all right, I got to devote myself to playing for the Gators. If you're going to play for the Gators, you got to be really good. And so I taught myself a splitty. I had a nasty changeup. I was working on my craft all the time. And I went from number 25 all the way down by the end of fall to the number 8 pitcher on the staff, which meant that I was going to see the mound, and I made the travel squad. So, at Florida, you got 25 pitchers, only 8 are going to pitch. Roughly 6 to 8. That'll be the only thing I see about. Well, I went from number 8, and this was the year 2000, and I ended up winning Pitcher of the Year at Florida in 2000, going 6-0. And against the Volunteers, I was SEC Pitcher of the Week. I threw like 7 shutout innings against them.
Lord.
And this is an interesting story. My final win at Florida was against the Georgia Bulldogs in Athens. That was my 10th win, which actually qualified Florida record books. And I think I have the 3rd highest winning percentage now in Gator history. And so that was all she wrote. I graduated in 2001, moved to Orlando, and started looking for a career like everybody else. Wonder what I could do with my life. So that was my Florida life, my Florida career there.
Dope. So you never got a shot at the majors or the minors or anything like that?
No, the majors and minors decided against me. I didn't throw hard. So I was a crafty lefty. And they're always looking for those big donkeys that throw like 100 miles an hour. Well, I wasn't that guy. And so I was the kind of guy that, about 85 miles an hour, had great control, would get outs. I was a great competitor. I didn't throw very hard. But for college, I was great. But I kind of knew by my senior year I was not going any further than this. But I got to fulfill my dream and do really well in college. And I also wanted to make money. I had no money, had no car, no money. I was leaving Florida, and I was like, man, I got to find a way to make money. And so I started working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, like a lot of former athletes, putting in about 65 hours a week. And I was renting cars, meeting all these businessmen. I'd be in a tie, sweating my butt off in the middle of August, getting his car clean. Hey, what do you do for a living? You know, like talking to him constantly. And luckily for me, the mentor for the company, because Enterprise is a great company, they actually issue you a mentor, a business mentor. So you go to lunch, you get to spend time with them. So for me, the mentor was the head of their fleet services outside sales division. So he'd always had this sweet suit, and he wouldn't be sweating at a rent-a-car branch like me because he was business to business sales. So he's had a nice suit. I was like, man, how do I get into fleet services? And so did really well in rent-a-car, got promoted to outside sales. That was my first experience doing business to business sales, professional sales, outside sales. And then I met this through that, you meet people. That's why I always say be kind to people. You never know what kind of roads, you never know who's going to pave that path that's going to change your life. So I meet this guy and he's like, hey man, my company has an opening to sell 401k plans. I didn't even know what 401k was at the time. I couldn't spell 401k. And so, but I knew how to talk, and I was pretty good at sales where I was, but I kind of hit a ceiling on how much you can make. And so, so I went and interviewed to sell 401k plans. They took me up. I worked for this company called Paychex. And that was my first introduction into stocks, bonds, and Wall Street, because I would sell 401k plans, but I'd have to work with financial advisors at Merrill Lynch and Smith Barney and Goldman Sachs, and I would have to give them these 401k plans. And so I started looking at what those guys do. And over the years, and I worked there for over a decade. And so over the years, I ended up sorry, hold on, guys. I got these kids behind me. Yeah. So over the years, I ended up having conversations, and they would say to me, Eddie, when you get the chance, you really should try to sit and become a financial advisor, sit for your exam. And so I started business planning what it is to be a financial advisor, hanging around them. They said, Eddie, if you don't know anything about stocks, bonds, and Wall Street, just put on Fox Business in the morning and just listen to the lingo, right? You start learning the language, like playing quarterback, right? Omaha 832Z, right? You hear all the stuff. Well, in investing, that's what's an option. What is it when you're straddling a stock? What's a short-term bond versus a long-term bond? What is a yielding inverted yield curve? Why do these things matter? What is the prime interest rate? What's LIBOR? You start hearing all these things, it becomes a language. And so I knew I was interested in becoming a financial advisor. I knew I always wanted to become a guy that made a lot of money, that got into the 7-figure and 8-figure income and be worth, a lot of money. I knew I wanted to do that. And so like anything else, I knew I had the ability and the niche to sell. I found a niche, and then I took on a business partner in 2000. Me and my wife, we got married. We got pregnant 30 days later after marriage. We opened our first company. My wife was also a licensed financial advisor. We took on a business partner. This was in 2009. And we started a company called 401k Generation. And this is 2010, I think we incorporated. At the same time, I was working 2 jobs. I was working for Paychex, but I was referring the financial advising opportunities to, as one of my partners, Tom Ruggie, and my wife, who were the advisors on the plans I was selling. So it was like natural synergy. It's as if, you work for a tire company or you work for a car company and you had the opportunity to refer the maintenance over to a service department that you happen to be part of as well. And so started doing that for a few years. By 2014, we got to a point where 2012, we got to a point where I was able to retire from Paychex and come over full time to 401k Generation. Then I studied for 8 straight months, locked myself in an office, failed my financial advising test 3 times, like a good athlete would, but kept coming back. And when I passed it, man, I just sat there and I was like, I did it, man. I can't believe I did it. Finally passed it. And so in 2014, my business partner gave me an opportunity to buy him out. And so we ended up buying out our business partner, and my wife and I own 100% of 401k Generation. At the time, we had about 200 million under management. And then I came up with a concept that I took back to my employer. This is why you don't burn bridges in your life. I had a concept that I knew they needed, and I built relationships while I worked there. And so when I went to them, even though I quit, when I went to them, they had open ears about what I was going to offer them, I had a concept that they needed. It's called a 316 fiduciary, but it's something that in their plans they really needed. It was going to make their clients a lot happier for having. I flew all over the country for about a year straight, trying to really pitch what I was going to do and get good relationships. And we went from 200 million under management, which is a nice size local firm, to 4 billion under management, which is where we are today. And went from 1 employee, now we're over 40 employees. And all I do is hang out and talk football all the time, which is my real dream in life, to hang out with y'all and talk football and do what we do today. So that's my story, man. Now we're at 2024 and 2023, got 3 kids and hanging out.
Man, that's a dream, man. That's the American dream when you come from, from nothing to something, man. That's so inspiring, man, to listen to it, learning your story, just really hustling, grit and grind and determination to change your family, dynamic and change, your legacy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
That was big to me. Yeah, that was big to me. I love that you said it that way too, because when you grow up with nothing and you don't have money, for me, I was like, I always dreamed about being able to do that. I thought baseball was going to be my ticket. Found out that baseball got me to college, where I was exposed to other things in life that really became my ticket. And today I wouldn't trade what I do today for any major league career. I get to stay home all the time and annoy my kids every day and annoy David and you guys every day on Spaces. That's better than traveling the world. I'd rather be with my family any day of the week and hang out with y'all.
Man, you grow to learn that too and to understand that. Mike, you want to say something? Go ahead, Mike.
Yep.
Oh no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, man. But so just talk about, now, man, talk about how you came up with the Gator Collective, how you wanted to, bring Florida back to dominance I grew up loving. That's how I became a Gator fan. And my grandmama's brother he's from Georgia, but he moved to St. Pete and stuff. So we used to go visit him, and the Gator games be on. We talk about it, and then Spurrier was always my guy. I was like, man, I love this guy. I'm gonna go play for him one day. And his press conference, him beating up on Georgia, and my brothers, my dad, all of them. I'm the only Gator in my out of all my siblings in my family and stuff like that. And so just growing up, they get on me now because everything I tortured them when I was a kid, so they couldn't say nothing. And so just every year seeing Georgia losing, and even when the years they did beat us, very few, and they lose in the SEC championship or don't make it to the national championship, are always blessings to me. So just talk about it. How
a long time.
No, it ain't. Let's talk about how you want to help Florida get back to dominance, and how you started the Gator Collective.
Yeah. So when NIL launched July 2021, I started trying to look. I was in a position where, quite frankly, I don't really do a lot anymore. Like my company runs itself. I got financial advisors getting plans coming in, money's being managed. I got a COO. I got team leads, and all I did for the last decade was wear orange and blue every day and go to the gym and kind of hang out. And so sitting around and hearing that NIL was launching and knowing that it was going to be independent from the UAA, it needed somebody that knew about running a company and building something. I looked around the landscape. I'm a Bull Gator. I go to booster events, but I'm like one of the youngest. Like a lot of them are a lot older than us. And so I started asking myself, who's going to do something for Florida? Like, is anyone going to step up and come up with a concept that can really organize the NIL space? And knowing that it wasn't really happening as quickly as I wanted it to, I wanted to get something started right away. It never, for me, was supposed to be a permanent thing. Because one thing I've learned, and we'll dive into that in a minute, is it's really hard work. Like it's not easy to do this. It's not fun. It's not glamorous. It's actually just the opposite. It's pretty miserable work when you're the front man. You're blamed for everything. True or not, doesn't matter. And then it's never going to be enough. So it becomes very difficult. But I did want to start the concept. I know a legitimate concept that can actually snowball into something bigger is what was needed. So I started conceptualizing, well, what do the Gators have? In Texas, they have oil beneath their feet. They have their money is kind of there, but what does Florida have? And doing a little business research on what Florida is the flagship university in the state. I talked to Learfield Sports because we were up in the jumbotrons at the stadium and all that.
Yep.
We have 3.3 million fans in the state. We're larger than the Miami Dolphins in the state. We're larger than any team in the state. Florida State doesn't have half. Miami's nowhere near us as far as number of fans, right? And so I started saying our secret sauce is crowdsourcing, is the Netflix kind of idea where if everyone has 30 cents a day in their pocket, then maybe we can grow something that could slay the elephant. Inside the Gator Collective, I came up with that phrase, slay the elephant, which is we need to figure out a way to utilize the NIL space to surpass Alabama. And that was my idea from the beginning, from the jump. And what we would do is the players would be entertaining the fans. We would do spaces events. We would do face-to-face events. We would call kids on their birthdays. We would have a football forum. We would get involved with all the podcasters and people around Gator Nation. We would send players to them. We would try to really make it a community-driven NIL. And so we were the first in the country to really spearhead it this way. And again, I'm not kidding you. Every school called us. I talked to business people at Georgia. We talked to the head coach of Utah, which was weird because we were about to play them. He called us up. Hey, what are you guys doing there? I need to do something for Utah here. I know we're not competitors. I know we're playing week 1, but Kyle, he calls us up and he just wants to talk to us and he wants to know what we're doing because we were getting, we got up to 3,000 members, and we did that by our own sweat and tears. We basically utilized Twitter, and we utilized some of the relationships we've developed with guys like Dave and you guys to say, hey, let's get something going for Florida because we need to do something. And honestly, our average donation was probably $15 a month. And we ended up doing, because we had a few millionaires kind of chip in, and I say a few, it wasn't a lot, but we ended up doing 254 athletes and over $7 million in a year and a half, in 17 months. In 17 months, we did 254 athletes and over $7 million we were able to do for those athletes of real money, and they were making an income, and that was the beautiful part about it. And they were entertaining the fans to do it. And that was the real amazing part about being part of that. For my 17 months doing that, very hard work. Before you start something, make sure you know kind of what's coming, and no good deed goes unpunished. So, but let me tell you something. It was worth it. And I feel like from the perspective of getting this thing going and now hopefully spinning off into Florida Victorious, and Florida Victorious taking the baton and bringing it even further, this is what Florida needs. I've always said that from day one. We need to get it going in that respect so that we don't have any shortcomings. We would have had a lot more yeses if I had more money. I would tell you, like, if we had bigger NIL, we get bigger yeses. And fans want to see the chicken before the egg, not the egg before the chicken, right? And so people are like, well, if we get the recruit, then I'll join. I'd be like, no, you need to join so we can get the players to come. It was opposite of what you think. You're the reason they won't come yet. And people never looked at it that way. And so I hope as it becomes more normal, and again, that was the other thing. It was 2021. Dan Mullen wouldn't even talk to us because he didn't realize the importance. We would get kind of like, oh, thanks, guys. And that was kind of the first 2 years of running the NIL. There was not really that involvement. And in their defense, the law really didn't stipulate how much they can get involved. So everyone was kind of scared of NIL, even though it was written that it's legal. It's like, what is NIL? People had a very limited understanding of it. So now that all that's behind us, I'm really hoping that the new NIL at Florida Victorious, that they thrive, they strive, they take off, fans get behind it, don't hesitate. And that's the only way we're going to be NILU. The good news is I feel like we're one of the few that actually have a buildable NIL. I think a lot of people are still counting on the few to be generous. And to me, that's not a good long-term business strategy at all. And that eventually the few might say, I'm not going to be doing this anymore, for whatever reason. And that's really nerve-wracking. That's why diversification and having thousands and thousands of people putting in is so important, because no one can decide to end you overnight at that point.
So just I mean, even that's very, very commendable. And man, I'm proud of you what you did, man, even through the ups and downs and everything about it. Uh, uh but so like how many kids you well I say this. What's the average y'all done a year for it to support the kids in all sports?
Man, I'll tell you what, it's hard to say the average because we did everything from being paid an NIL deal to do a one-time event to being paid a 6-month salary to do an NIL deal. We also did business to business NIL deals. We got the first car deal in Gator history for Anthony Richardson. And that was, and so we helped kind of orchestrate that stuff. We were the first. And look, when you're the first at anything, you're chopping down the trees to build a trail, right? There's no trail yet. So you don't realize you don't know what you don't know until you head west and you realize that there's a lot of areas to trip over and things like that. And so we experienced a lot of the bad early simply to hopefully pave the way so that we all can learn from things and make the better moving forward. One thing that we did do a good job of, I think, is diversifying. We wanted everyone to wet their whistle that deserved to, right? And that included other teams too. We had our basketball coach that wanted to retain Colin Castleton, had to get him a deal, right? When at that time, we had other teams like Georgia and Missouri, and that players that were potentially going to hit the portal. And we had to save those players from hitting the portal. And so I believe the budget at Florida needs to be at least $20 million just for football to be healthy. Yeah. And I actually had it down by position group, by number of players and what they need to make. And so I think a $20 million football budget we'd probably be top 3, top 2 recruiting class every single year in the country if we had that kind of budget just for football. And that's my opinion.
Yeah. So when you come with the numbers to the UAA or people at Florida, the powers that be, how did they receive that? Do they agree with the budget number?
Well, so we never we didn't talk budget with them because they're not really supposed to dive into that. But I will tell you, verbally, everyone is receptive. Everyone knows that Florida needs an NIL, right? The problem is getting there. It's so tough to get people to understand that their $15 a month or whatever it costs today to join Florida Victorious, that it actually matters, right? The hardest thing is getting people to grab their debit card and get involved. That, to me, I used to lose sleep over it. I also was in a position where I had 35 contracts going at the same time, and I'm fundraising and I'm watching the number, hoping that it will continue to creep up so we can get some breathing room. One thing I've never said is during my entire time for 2 years, I never took one penny of the money, not one penny. And, I've been blessed in that area of my life already, so I didn't need to, but it was never one of those things where I took anything. There was no penny to take. It literally was, we made the money, we paid the players that were on NIL, and we never were late with one check to any of them. That also makes me very proud. And that we always been able to get the money for them and get them paid. And it was nerve-wracking. I thank God for a few major boosters that did step up at times that we really needed the help. Some of these same guys are still on the advisory board helping Florida Victorious. But, I want to emphasize for Gator Nation, we still need to replace them. Like I always said to them, look, thank you for helping me in year 1 and year 2. I'm hoping by year 4 and year 5, we have enough people involved that we don't need major contributions anymore. That's kind of the goal, because then you truly are running a company. Look, a wise man once told me, you own a real company when it doesn't need you anymore.
Correct.
When you become like a nuisance to the people at your company and it's just kind of running itself and you can do whatever, now you have a real company. Well, I'm hoping the NIL at Florida becomes that mature, that it's just running on autopilot. There's not this chase after the dollar kind of thing every month to kind of fill the gaps.
Yeah. So let me ask you then. So I guess now, so a lot of people these kids have these expectations or whatever the case may be throughout the recruiting process and everything. So how do a 3-star kid that's gonna eventually get bumped maybe to a top 50, 150 or 100 or top 75 player know his worth? You know, I'm like how I know I'm worth hypothetically 80,000. Like
I got a controversial opinion on this. I don't think anyone really has a value outside of what someone was willing to pay for them. Like there isn't really a said number. I see like these arbitrary numbers, NIL value, and I laugh. I'm like, where did that number come from? Where did you get 28,750 for X kid, for X athlete? You know, the truth is, it's hard to justify monetary value without having a product to prove it. At Nike, for example, from what I heard, they never paid any signing bonuses above $10,000 when they'd even launch your sneaker. They would basically say, let's get you going and let's see how well these Jordans sell to determine how much you should make. And so for me, like, how do you justify paying someone when you can't really see how many socks, how many hats, how many jerseys, how the NFT sells, or anything like that? How could you give that a number if it's not actually creating any sort of ROI, or return on investment that is tangible and can be proven? For us, what we would do is we'd get all these players and we would see our memberships either go up or down, right? And the biggest days we ever had was like week 1, we brought in all these members because everyone was excited about NIL. But outside of that, it was very, very limited.
Got you.
I really appreciate you guys having me on, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, man. I've been wanting to do this for a minute. Be quiet, Zeus. So just all right, we could talk about RJ. Zay, y'all got any debate on it? Mike, you got any questions?
We can get away from the NIL stuff, man. Talk some real ball, man. So how you feel
That's
about
because
that?
RJ Tennessee's broke. We know this, bro.
Bro. I got more money than you. I got more money than you. What
I
you
spent
mean?
all that money on Nico, bro. You spent all that money on
You see who
Nico.
got the #1 NIL company right now, man. Stop playing with Spy Sports Group, man. All right, but anyway, back to this talking about. Look,
RJ,
I was finna say, yeah, what's up? What's up?
Zeus. So I want to ask David. We get into this real quick because I know David. We don't got long with you guys. Appreciate you, David. Soda Quest for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
Check out David with Hot Top Sports. He does a lot of breakdown with his podcast. It's Getting Swamped. I listen to your show. Great guy. So David, you had the On3 guys come on the show and just talk about how the 247 and On3 be kind of biased towards these kids when they commit to Florida. Georgia get the luxury at Bama. It was always a Bama bump or UGA bump or what's the other powerhouse or some other Oklahoma at the time. Sometimes they always get the bump. Talk about your interaction with that.
It all started with basically there's a lot of people complaining on the internet, especially on Twitter, from like multiple fan bases. I mean, Michigan State, one of their players came out and said something about their ranking. I had actually an LSU commit actually sent me a DM and said, "Hey, thanks for standing up for us." And I was like, I don't know what I stood up for, but hey, all right. It basically, Shelton was taking tweets from either players or some of the other fans that were on Twitter and saying, hey, basically, this is a little bit sus. Like, just, whatever. Just because you say something sus doesn't mean that it actually is happening. It just means that, like, hey, it looks a little bit suspect, That's all it really means. So I kind of posted a little bit of video clips on there, and Shannon Terry actually reached out to me, and he said, hey, do you guys want to get me on for an interview? And I texted Shelton, and I said, hey, he wants to come on for an interview. He's got these times he can do today, tomorrow morning. And so he's like, oh, let's do it in an hour. And we got together, and that's kind of how that whole thing came about. During the interview is basically Shelton and Shannon basically talking amongst each other. I kind of sat in the background. I didn't really have questions about like the ranking part aspect of it, but there was like a few other questions I had because some of the articles they released, all that other kind of stuff. And the gist of that interview, you know, and I have a lot of respect for Shannon Terry. I mean, he built Rivals, sold it to Yahoo, built 24/7, sold it to CBS Sports, and now he's got On3. And anyway, you could tell Shannon kind of was in a really, really like he was in an irritated mood because he got a lot of fire from a lot of fan base. It wasn't just Florida fans. I mean,
Right.
there's a lot of Texas fans. Tennessee fans were mad because one of their 5-star players got dropped like 100 spots or something like that. So it was going around like everywhere. So we were just kind of covering it and just saying, "Hey, man, this all these fans are upset. All these players are upset. What's going on?" You know. And the smoke's always kind of been there when they first started. I mean, like everybody was complaining about the rankings when it first started. It's just the fact that the smoke got really, really, really hot, and then they decided to respond because like it was multiple fan bases doing it. So that's why we were just like, okay, well, yeah, we'll take the interview, whatever. When he got to the interview, he was just upset. You could tell that like he was in a really, really bad mood. And Shelton was trying to kind of explain, you know, usually when you do an interview, and I kind of do it too, I'll explain a little bit. Shelton kind of sometimes tends to lead on a little bit longer than most people, but you know, you explain it and then you ask the question. The problem with that interview was I was sitting in the background and I was listening, and Shannon gave the same answer for every question, but at the same time, Shelton never got to finish anything to ask him a different question. And Shelton had like, he was just saying, okay, well, what do you got to say about the players? What do you got to say about he was trying to give him an out to help better On3 so it didn't make him look as bad. But that whole interview just made him look even worse because he was interrupting him every time. He cursed too. Like he said the F word and all that other kind of stuff. And we were just like, wow, like I'm just sitting there in the background and I was gonna like intervene and be like, hey man, let Shelton finish. But then at the same time, I was just like, you know what? He's already making it bad for himself. I'm just gonna let him go. So he went and he did his thing. And you know, I won't say like, as I said, I have a lot of respect for Shannon and what he's done, but just because you respect somebody doesn't mean that like you can't dislike what they did on your interview. Like I personally was like sit there like, okay, well, you're just gonna make it worse for yourself if you keep doing this. So anyway, that interview was over. And I had some questions not related to recruiting to ask him. I didn't care about the whole ranking thing, whatever. And Pete Nakos, he released an article, national writer for On3, about the whole Rashada situation. And Eddie, I don't know what Eddie's doing right now, but he released an article about it, and he got one side of the story. He got Miami's side of the story, and never called Eddie, never called Jen, never even contacted Gator Collective at the time, and they ran with just one side of the story. And I asked him, I said, well, why did that happen? Well, like usually like when you're in media, and I've done it before. Like I've worked for sites where I've had to report on things. You get both sides of the story. If there is two sides. Now, if there's one side, you get one side, you're good. He didn't even try to even contact Eddie. And me and Eddie, we talked on the phone about this when it happened. And of course, I'm not going to say anything because I told him I wouldn't. And, you know, there's legal stuff in it too. You can't say things about certain things. And I finally was able to like get the actual stories. That's why I asked Shannon and I drilled him on it. And he kept telling me, well, I don't know. And I'm like, I said, I get that. Like you're the CEO, you have like 200 people that work underneath you. You can't be everywhere at all times. I get that part. But that was a big national story. That was a big NIL national story last year. That's probably one of the biggest. Like he already knew who had the article, like who already made the article. So like, how can you not know what happened? You know what happened in that situation. But like, that was the part where he was just like, well, I don't know. And he said he would get back to me on it. And he never did. Like, I'm still waiting. Nobody's gotten back to me on anything. So, and then we went into the old Austin Simmons thing. And Shelton had asked him, well, Newberg put out a video through the Austin Simmons thing. And he's like, well, basically he was saying that Keith came out and said it first, and then Newberg put the video out. And I said, it really doesn't matter who did what first. I said, it's still On3's fault because they reported the wrong thing and they reported way too early, like a day or two too early.
Yep.
And he went on, Coach Hayes. I love Coach Hayes to death. I have a lot of respect for that guy too. I've been on his show a couple times. He reviews a lot of high school players and it does a really good job on that. He's a Miami guy, so he had on, Austin Simmons, and Austin Simmons said, yes, I'm going to enroll early. I'm going to reclassify to 2023, but I'm flipping my commitment to Ole Miss. So then it put them under a lot of heat right there. And I tried to, Shelton tried to ask him about it, but of course it was the same response. So that's why there was like a lot of heat. We tried to sit there and like let Shannon explain everything. And maybe there was a good out for him, or maybe he could explain why this is this way and why this was reported the wrong way. We got nothing, nothing at all, but the same answer about the rankings. And then I don't know the rest of the whole way. So that's why like it got a lot more heat for him. And it wasn't the fact that we were trying to do it. We were just wanting to know, like, why is it this way? Because people wondering, like, we have fans that ask us why On3 is not like so biased and all this other kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm just asking the questions. Like I say on Twitter, I just report the news, right? So
Yeah.
I was just asking questions to him, and it blew up like, I don't know, way worse than what it should have for it. It just made him look worse. And I wish he would have at least took the time to listen to Shelton and actually answer the questions that he had that we had. And he didn't let him. And I think that's what a lot of other Florida fans and some other fans of other sides are still irritated about. And I knew On3 went under a lot of heat. He went on a lot of podcasts and shows, and he did a lot of them. And I haven't even listened to any of them. So, but that's where it all stemmed from, was the fact that, like, you know, ever since they started, and he said that they're going to make mistakes. It's a startup company. They're going to make mistakes. Reporting on a big NIL story, you probably want to get both sides. That's a huge mistake, dude. Reporting on somebody's commitment 2 days or however many days it was early, and then have it being wrong too, that's pretty bad too. So that's why I was just like, sometimes it's okay to be first in that industry. But if you want to be first, you have to make sure that information is 100% correct. Kid's already enrolled. He can't go back. He can't change his mind, and then you report on it. Like, and that wasn't the case. So that's kind of where all that kind of stuff stemmed from, was the interactions on Twitter and everything else. We were just trying to get down to the bottom of it and try to help him out, and he just didn't help himself at all.
So Eddie, did they ever reach out to you for your perspective?
No, I never spoke to anyone to do that. Now I will tell you, great conversations with other folks in great local, podcasters, and David and you guys, and like great conversations on that level. I would say this, I'm hoping we learn from it, and I'm hoping that what ends up happening is, whether you're a Georgia Bulldog podcaster or Florida Gators or Tennessee, whoever you're with, you guys know more about your program than national people any day of the week. And so that you actually know about your program. You're not just a talking head off of like the Paul Feinbaum show. No offense to Paul Feinbaum. But the truth be told is now that, David even set that standard, hey, challenge truth to get to the truth, right? Challenge what's happening, and then use common sense after you challenge it. Then that's really going to help fix a lot of this. At the end of the day, the player involved in that didn't deserve that. He didn't deserve that. I'm an adult, like I'm in my mid 40s, but I wasn't so much worried about me. Like Florida didn't deserve what was said. The player involved didn't deserve what was said. And it just gets ugly because it's just not verified information. And so, I'm just glad that I think everyone's moved past all of it. And I feel like, for the best, it's just, we're moving in the right direction with it. And I think it's also going to help, like, you almost look at things like when you look at the stock market, if we're students of history, you had the Great Depression. That was terrible. Right. But what happened after the Great Depression? Right. Certain regulations to protect the individual investors were put in place. And so I'm hoping the same thing happens with NIL throughout the history of it. Right. We headed west. We started with a real controversial idea that we all in deep down believe players should be being compensated for their efforts. Right. We cheer for a multi-billion-dollar sport that we pretend that they should not be making anything except for a scholarship for the longest time. Now that pretend is over, and it's like, okay, now let's find out a way to monetize this for them. For many of them, this is going to be their earning years in football, right? Even though they're not paid to play, quote unquote, this is their earning years being paid on their name, image, and likeness for playing the sport that they play. And so I'm excited that can happen too. But I really appreciate podcasters and those that really have a love for their school, because you guys are the ones who typically bring truth to light. You see what I'm saying? Like, it's never going to be somebody on a net. They're going to learn from you guys. So I appreciate everything that was done by David and a lot of the people on a local level. And I want to put, Nick Delatorre Even Andy Staples, who's a Florida Gator, all these folks really are like, okay, let's really try to figure things out a little bit more than it has been figured out. So I really appreciate that coming from me. I mean, I lived right through that. And that was a crazy time, but I'm glad to see we're kind of past it.
Yeah, let me interject here for a second, man. And I know you've got a Georgia Bulldog guy on here too, and I'm pretty sure they're experiencing the same things with the AJC right now. So I made a few jokes on Twitter, but I know that's pretty real. Like I know that the AJC, there's a lot of stuff going on with that right now. So I know how y'all feel.
Man, they talk about that though, Mike, man. And but they've been doing this for years. All these national writers, all these national guys. And then I'll talk about it amongst my family and my friends and stuff. They're like, Larry, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know this and know that. Until they realize, what's really going on. They started paying attention to certain stories now that, hey, man, what's really going on? And so I'm just happy, for y'all guys to even confirm the stuff I've been saying for years, even with recruiting ranking with different types of quarterbacks and different types of players and stuff like that. So,
well, what you mean by that? What you mean?
Have you not been listening for the last 20
I've been
minutes?
listening, but what you talking about? What you trying to say? Just say it, cause I'm ready for you. What you saying? Yeah, Larry? You know what Larry trying to say. You know that little Georgia bump. Go ahead and say it. I know what you're trying to get it. I know.
Hey, man.
Yeah. Trying to get it.
No, man,
go ahead, man.
I said y'all the Georgia bump and the Bama bump is real. It's biased towards y'all, and I mean
Gator bump too. Gator got.
Man, ain't no goddamn Gator bump, man.
A lot of people bring up like the Chauncey Bowens bump, and really, I knew that bump was probably going to come anyway because he was playing really well. So I don't really look at that like a sus. But like the last year with the Jordan Hall thing, like he was rated like 150, 120 the whole year. 2 months, like it was like in November or somewhere, he committed to Georgia, and in 2 months he went up like 100 spots. And I'm like, how does somebody do that in 2 months? Like that, even if you have good lights out camps, there's no way.
I don't know. So I've been saying that for years, man.
Why Jordan Davis didn't get no phone?
Talk about Jordan Hall or Jordan Davis?
I'm talking about Davis. Larry said he's been saying it for years. So why Jordan Davis didn't get that phone, Larry?
I don't know. I can't speak, but majority of it, we've seen it on a big scale that people, not only Florida fans, been feeling like this, like, LSU, Texas, like David just said, like we been paying attention.
So all three. Even
247.
I'll put another thing in there too. I watched that Under Armour All-American game, and Zachary Branch is really, really good. He couldn't move up no matter what, whether he won MVP or not, which he did win MVP. He was still the number one. I think he was number one athlete or receiver or whatever. So he never went up anyway. I think Peter Woods, he went up, he won MVP, and Peter Woods is like really, really good too. Clemson got a good one with Peter Woods, but like Kelly Collins, he won MVP also, and he went down like 5 spots. And I'm like, how did he go down 5 spots? He won the MVP of the freaking Under Armour. Like everybody else went up, but he didn't. Like I was shocked, dude. I was so shocked.
Hey, do Ohio State get bumps?
Yes, I think so. It depends on camping.
Dylan Raiola, he went down. Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the players' interest in camping too. Like I think a lot of these syndicates have an interest in getting certain players to visit certain camps. Well, that's why you also get player misses too, right? Like they they're not around to the ones that potentially this outlet or this website likes. And so it's a little bureaucratic to it, but you got to respect it too, right? Because you got to say, look, most 5 stars, they're probably going to be pretty dang good. High 4s, they're probably going to be pretty dang good. Now, are there misses? Yeah, absolutely. But that's why you want to always – that's why we got to look at the national titles and where these guys average. It's like, the highest 2 classes are typically around at the end of the year. It's amazing how that works. So
I would say the different from Arch Manning because he hardly went to any camps and they still kept him at number 1.
Well, we know why he got his bump. He'll get all the bumps he needs in life.
Man, I kept telling folks, man, last year, man, that Nico was way better than ours, man. I don't care.
It's funny. That's the worst kept
know
secret. Everyone knows that Nico is
number one because of your last name. Like, I'm watching you play, like, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not seeing number one quarterback. Like, I'm not seeing.
I liked Eli Holstein for Alabama. I liked him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know with Tennessee, like we had two players that started off unranked and they finished the season. We had one guy, David Hobbs, who was like he was either unranked or he was a 3-star. I can't remember, but he wound up working his way all the way to 5.
Yeah.
And we had Nathan Leacock, who started off from not being ranked at all to being higher than Carnell Tate, which was crazy. I was like, man, so.
I mean, but Hobbs got his update. He got his jump during the summer. That's when he got his.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
How did you feel like Arch?
Where he started it? Did he start off unranked or was he a 3-star?
He was a 3-star. I think he started off as a 3-star, but during the summer when you had Alabama, Georgia, all of them coming after them after the summertime, he moved up to.
You see the two names, bro. you heard the two names, right? That he said. Then you see Amari Jefferson get all this hype, bro. Even though I already knew how cold he was, but it's just like as soon as Alabama, Georgia started wanting him, bro, he started flying up them rankings. I was like,
yeah, man, it happens, bro.
It's definitely Alabama, Georgia.
No,
it's clearly biased to y'all too.
Wait,
it's clearly.
Hold on. What about Felipe Frank?
I'm just saying, any when Alabama and Georgia go after a player, they go up in them rankings. That's all I'm saying.
Wow.
You look at Williams Leary, bro. Like he wasn't even a top 10 player, bro. And when it was Tennessee and Oklahoma, but as soon as y'all came in there, bro, and got number one, he was number one overall player. Like, come on, bro.
Top 10. He was top 10, top 15.
That's what I said. He was like Friends top 10, bro. And then y'all became number one.
Okay, what about Felipe Frank?
That's some bull. Like, what you mean?
Hey, my philosophy has always been commit to Georgia and wait till National Signing Day and then flip, so you won't lose your ranking.
Yeah, exactly. That's what Larry didn't see. He know it, bro. I see it. That Larry see it. Y'all see it.
Hey, hold on.
So it's the Alabama and Georgia. That's it.
Until you get on that damn field and develop, bro.
Real talk.
Until you get on that field and develop, man.
It's just hilarious, but like Georgia fans was trying to make it seem like they was they dropped Dylan Raiola just to bring up an Alabama quarterback to number one. Like I'm like, it's either one of y'all two. Like
who said that, RJ?
We got 6 3-stars. What are you talking about?
They even jumped up Ellis Robinson though. Ellis Robinson went up in the rankings.
He should have.
Yeah, I know he called though. He called. I'm just saying.
He would start on everybody else's defense with Georgia.
He would. I ain't gonna lie, he a beast. I can't even hate on him.
Not my secondary though.
Bro, he's a starter on your secondary in front of Marshall.
No,
he'll start in front of Marshall right now.
No, you won't.
Easily, Larry.
Boy, but you got Tyke Smith who's fighting.
You got Joe Hayden over there.
Not my corners, my safeties. I give that my safeties are very, very questionable.
Lassiter would start for y'all, bro. What are we talking about?
Lassiter would not start at Florida.
I saw your DBs, bro. They couldn't find the ball when it was up in the air.
You didn't see
Larry.
Are you on Florida?
Bro, what's that dude we lost to Florida, the cornerback?
Yeah. Which one?
What his name?
Jalen Kimber?
What the
hell? You talking about Kimber? Oh yeah, how's he doing? By the way, how's he doing?
He's not starting right now. He's probably in the rotation, but right now, Devin
Moore. He did start though, Larry.
I feel like we got Eddie, what you think? I feel like we got the two best corner down.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, Jalen. I think right now Jalen is starting opposite of Jason Marshall, with Devin Moore being right behind him, or that could flip. I think it could be Marshall and Moore, or Marshall and Kimber. But on that side of the ball, it'll be Kimber and Moore kind of platooning mostly. And then on the opposite side, it'll be Jakeem Jackson and Marshall.
Yeah,
Marshall being the number one.
Well, Marshall sophomore.
He's a junior this year. He's first round. He's out after this year.
Yeah, Marshall's a
I mean,
junior. True
I
junior.
asked you about first round. Okay, I didn't ask you that. But hey, do you see my name though? You like my name?
No.
Y'all like my name?
Felipe
Did I spell it right?
Felipe no, I don't know. Let me see. I don't think you did. Hold on. No one spelled that right. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. No one
But
spelled that
y'all know
right.
what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I know he was like committed to LSU. Did he get a bump when he committed to Florida?
I don't think he was already like a top
But
4-star.
but the funny thing is, y'all got a bump when we flip Bowens. All y'all players went up. That's the crazy part. That last update was mid-June. All y'all players got a bump.
I just look. Man,
If you think about it, David, if Felipe Franks would have went to LSU, then chances are Joe Burrow never shows up there. So LSU could thank us for their national championship.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Hey, check this out. Y'all want to know what's so crazy? I never heard nothing about a bump until we won.
No, that's it's been a minute.
I ain't gonna lie. Georgia and Bama bump been there.
I haven't heard nothing about a Bama bump.
But you know what? I'm okay with that. Y'all need to develop your players though. Y'all need to develop the 3 stars y'all have.
Nah, they need to be
Four
realistic.
stars.
That's what they need to do. They stop bumping your players up just because y'all recruiting them. Like, so y'all can say number one.
But here's the thing though.
RJ,
you see them get drafted. You see them get drafted.
Shout out to Frakes, man. I appreciate
Yeah.
you, Jordan Bowen.
He said Florida DBs a trade.
Yeah.
I mean, respectfully, yeah.
Yeah, whatever. So we could talk about real quick, man. David and Eddie, man. We got Fletcher Westfall, offensive lineman, tackle. I listened to the guys from the Jacksonville 1010X out of the hacker Ryan Green. I like his show too. Sometimes I listen to it. So he had him on, and he talked about why he chose Florida over Clemson when these other 3 idiots on the show right here try to tell me, well, I think it's Clemson. I just kept quiet because appreciate the Eddie. And,
I know who it wasn't though. Was definitely wasn't Georgia because our offensive line room is nice.
Dead giveaway is when you saw all the people that actually know get a little quiet on the timeline. You know he was coming to Florida at that point.
Right.
When Clemson was talking about it, when Clemson was talking about it, and we were giggling and like, yeah, listen to the giggle. Yeah. We were like everyone because it was the worst. We all knew like that was one of the worst kept secrets for everyone that knew that he was coming to us. We tried our best, but everyone's laughing like we know what's under the tree at Christmas.
Yeah, I remember I was told like a while back that like he wasn't going to go to Clemson, and they were like, keep it quiet. And then I think it was somebody had submitted a crystal ball like the day before, and I was like, well, it's already out there now.
Yeah, it's already out there. Yeah.
We got a few more coming.
We got a few more coming.
So do we.
Keep up. Hey. I gotta keep up. That's all I gotta say.
I'm gonna let y'all know right now, Tennessee about to rise up them rankings, man. Y'all think it's sweet now?
Yeah, that Tennessee bump. Yeah, the Tennessee bump.
Yeah, Mike Matthews got dropped, so I ain't trying to hit that Tennessee bump. I play a drop for some reason.
What you mean Matthews got bump? What you mean?
Dropped. For some reason, Mike Matthews was top 3 wide receiver, and then all of a sudden he 5. Like, come on, bro. We know what team he going to.
He might be trying.
He might.
Mike Matthews, bro. Come on, bro.
Yeah, he trying.
I'm gonna go and see him play. I'll tell you about it. He about 10 minutes from my house.
Yeah, I'm finna say y'all gonna watch the man play. He finna go stupid.
I'm gonna go to a few Buford games this year.
Yeah, I'm going.
How many is Tennessee expected to take this class? Do you know?
I want to say 27. I want to say that, but I don't know. This NCAA shit just happened, so we might be losing some scholarships this year.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, so, hey, I'll say that the NCAA slapped us on the wrist.
Oh, yeah.
Slapped us on the wrist, but we could have came out of that terrible. Like,
they won't talk
we
about
got
us.
a bowl band, bro. We would have lost a lot of guys.
Yeah. So RJ, talk about Talk about the O3 article about Pruitt gave Darnell Washington.
I would go ahead on Georgia fans with this. I mean, man, we already knew Pruitt was paying folks, bro. I mean, I knew it. Y'all knew it. We were sorry, and all of a sudden we get all the 5-star players somehow. Like
$300. You give him grocery food.
he was giving folks money in McDonald's bags, bro. I mean, we're talking about Jeremy Pruitt here.
Maybe he gave some Walmart money
and $300.
Yeah, and like I was messing with all the Georgia fans, and I'm like, I said, you know what? We paid him. We paid him to go to Tennessee, and he picked y'all. So what y'all doing over there? You know, they made him go there. You know, and then Georgia fans denied they
paid him $600. We paid him $600.
Nah, y'all took care of that kid, man. That baby.
We took care of the kid. We had the best schools for. You know, we took care of. We did. You know.
Yeah, y'all took care of him all right. Y'all gave him a new Mercedes Benz. You know what I'm saying? He probably bought him a new house.
Actually, y'all gave everything he needed. We just came to us. Yeah. Innocent to prove guilty. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, I agree.
They just sound for
y'all doing it. Y'all just didn't get caught like us. See, the thing is, we didn't even get caught. We told on ourselves. That's exactly what we did. We got tired of Pruitt, and we didn't want to pay that buyout he had. He had a $12 million buyout, and we were like, nah, we're not paying that. So we snitched on him. We snitched on him ourselves.
Fun Tennessee fact. They are the 6th highest SEC school in recruiting so far this cycle. But in every single other conference, they would be number 2 or number 1.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
But Texas, Oklahoma, think they're going to come here and run the conference somehow.
They're 6th highest in our conference right now, and I know it's still early, a lot of recruits to be had. But in every other conference, they would be number 2 or number 1. Big 10, they'd be number 2. Big 12, they'd be number 1. Pac-12, they'd be number 2. Like as of right now, it's pretty crazy when you look at it that way.
So, what do you think? Go ahead, Zay.
I'm finna say, we need to handle the bid between Oklahoma and Texas. They talk a lot of, bro. They talking like they finna over the SEC, bro. So I need y'all
to become a real Oklahoma and Texas fans. They coming over here to take over.
Tennessee to handle their business. Yeah, they trying to take over, bro. They talking about they the real.
Texas gonna do good. Texas gonna do good. I don't know about Oklahoma.
We got a traffic jam of just as good though. That's the problem. LSU is not taking a backseat to Texas. Georgia is not taking a backseat to Texas. I hate to say it. I don't want to sound like a homer. Florida by next year is going to be kind of built, ready to not take a backseat to anybody.
I tried to tell
them. Tennessee's not taking a backseat to Texas. Like, I hate to say it. Like, look at the numbers. I mean, it's just not going to happen that way. They're going to come here, and it's going to be mano a mano. They're as good or they're not as good week in and week out. And then it's up to coaching at that point.
Yeah, I agree.
I tried to tell them, man. I said, man, in the Big 12, you were probably the most talented team out of just about every team that you played against. You come over to the SEC, you are either like he said, you're either as good or there's somebody's better than you. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to out scheme these people, bro.
Yeah. Hey, it's crazy. What about this, Eddie? We was talking about this in the spaces the other day, and if Billy gets Graham Mertz drafted and played very serviceable, it's going to be crazy on that trail. I think he's always a great recruiter. Man, we talking about he's going to be able to be in the same hunting with Lincoln Riley for his just recruiting. You know what I'm saying? For us to pitch and development. Like, it's really going to get crazy. Quarterbacks already love Billy right now. And then imagine him developing Graham Mertz.
Look at Michael Page.
Remember. Wait. Hey, wait. Hold on. I'll say this. Hey, remember, this is a recorded podcast. Remember, I said this. When Mertz threw for 240 and had a really good second half in the spring game, and I know that he started 32 games in college football. See, when I was playing college baseball, year 1 for me was awful. Got cut. Year 3, I went 6-0 and won pitcher of the year on my team and made SEC pitcher of the week twice, and that kind of thing. When you get your head kicked in, as much as that guy got his head kicked in, sometimes you might figure it out to be a really good college quarterback. Like that's what it does happen. So I'm just saying, like, people are acting like this guy's he was a top 100 recruit out of high school. He got his head kicked in. He had 32 starts. He ran for his life last year behind a terrible O-line, and he threw for 19 touchdowns and 10 picks. And now he's coming to Florida with a running game where we're run heavy. We might not even ask him to do that much. We're not asking him to go out there and be Anthony Richardson from last year and win us ball games. We're asking him to just don't make the mistakes and make the occasional good throw and run for a first down when you got 4 yards of grass in front of you. Like, so being asked to do less, a ton of experience, never know. You might have yourself a 2-year starter that actually was pretty serviceable in college.
Hey, y'all want to know who you sound like right now? You sound like me trying to defend Jerry Garantano back in the day, bro.
I must say, you actually sound like him now.
He was a top 100. He was the number one quarterback. He had all the talent.
And actually, Garantano was probably better than the rest of your team, though. But Garantano was like probably better athletically than the rest of your team because he was a really good quarterback. Like he actually was probably better than a lot of the guys on that team. Where I think Mertz isn't. Now, Dave, think about it for a second, and Larry, all the Gator fans, think about it for a second. Where do you put Mertz amongst the most talented players on the Florida Gators offense right now? Where would you say he is? He's not more talented than Montrell Johnson. He's probably not. Like when you start looking at your pieces, who are the pieces that are going to be your stars? You probably say where he's at. ETN. You probably say like, what is he, 6th?
Yeah, probably right? 6 or 7. Around about there.
So, like you start thinking about that. It's like, okay, so we're asking him to be the 6th or 7th best player and be good with the football, which is something we've really needed, right?
Correct.
That's kind of what we do need. Be good with the football, make the throws you're supposed to throw. Let's not ask you to do too much in the same respect. I'll let David speak to it. He's more of an expert than I am, but that's kind of like my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the notion I get with it too. I mean, Anthony Richardson last year, one hell of an athlete, man. I mean, the guy did more things with his legs and his athletic ability than he did passing the football. I mean, obviously, pass plays were pretty, for the most part, they were pretty accurate if he was passing it to a receiver. I have to knock him for that Hail Mary against Vanderbilt going into the stands. But other than that, I mean, yeah, if you look at it, and I've done some research at PFF stats, I've done all sorts of like statistical, just anything analytical that I could come up with that might help us out in this offense. We run a very, very run-heavy play-action offense, and that's where Graham Mertz thrives. He thrives in play-action. He also is a way better passer in the 0 to 9 yard range than Anthony Richardson was. When I looked at Anthony Richardson, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was between 40 or 50% in the 0 to 9 range completion rating. Graham Mertz is like 72. So, like, that at least those slants and those short little pass plays that you need to get a first down or something, well, you'll get better at that. But can Graham Mertz, is he good on the 10 to 20 yard digs and then the route? Is he good on like the 20+ yard deep passes? I really don't think his statistics were like that bad considering his offensive line at Wisconsin. I mean, he probably didn't even have time enough to throw it 20 yards or 10 to 20 yards when he was getting pressured. I mean, I think he was sacked 47 times his whole career when he was there. He's pressured 277 times out of 700 some odd attempts. I mean, that's like 30.6% of the time he's dropping back, he's getting pressured. So you give him a little bit of slack on that. And then I looked at his time to throw. It was like 2.78 seconds, which usually most good, decent quarterbacks are from 2.5 to 2.8. And if you're getting the football out pretty quickly, I mean, at least within a time to throw range, obviously the statistics don't look that well. His touchdown interception ratio was really horrible, but you look at his time to throw, you put everything in and you're just like, okay, well, he is a good decision-making quarterback, at least for when he wants to throw the football. Obviously through picks, so you want to get rid of that. But I think if he can calm down on his interceptions, get a little bit more time in the pocket, he'll have a better offensive line. We'll see what the offensive line does. I think he'll have a better offensive line than what he did at Wisconsin, but he's also going to be playing harder competition. So that you got to factor that in too. So you look at that spring game. I don't really look too far into spring games because, I mean, I've seen Felipe Franks look good in the spring game. Luke Del Rio look good in the spring game. And then you see Kyle Trask look really horrible in one spring game, and then he comes out and lights everybody up in 2020. So, I mean, that spring game, I mean, you go in there and then the press conference, even Graham Mertz said that the offense was dumbed down, and it's a different defense. And I think I'm more excited for how this defense is gonna be because Austin Armstrong is a very very he'll blitz a lot, not like Todd Grantham blitz a lot, but he's a lot more aggressive. So I think the defense will improve. I don't know how much they're going to improve, but when you're rated statistically 113 different categories, and I said this on Twitter earlier today, there's nowhere to go but up. You can't go any worse than like 100. Hopefully it's not in the 120s. But at the same time, it's a whole different defense. All these guys have transferred in the portal, and you brought in new guys, so it's all going to look different to begin with anyway. And somebody said, "Oh yeah, he'll delete this tweet in 45 days." And I said different. I never said it was going to be good or bad.
Hey, I want to throw this in there. I'm going to take two quarterbacks. Both came from the Big Ten. Both joined the SEC. One guy, his last year in the Big Ten, and both are currently in the SEC right now. I'm not going to give you their names. One guy went, let's see here, threw for a 56.7% percentage completion rate, went for 4 touchdowns and 4 picks, and had 124.6 rating. The other guy, in his last year in the Big Ten, went for 2,136 yards, 57.3%, went 19-10. He also threw for a yard more per average throw, and has almost double the amount of yards in college football passing. Who are those two guys? Both SEC quarterbacks starting this year.
RJ?
Or Joe Milton.
Joe Milton. That's Joe Milton versus Graham Mertz in their last year in the Big Ten. And one played for behind Wisconsin, and the other guy played behind Michigan.
And Michigan runs the ball 90% of the time. That's crazy.
What Joe Milton's stats?
Joe Milton's last year at Michigan, he went for yards per attempt, 6.9. He threw 4 touchdowns and had 4 interceptions and had a 124.6 quarterback rating. Graham Mertz last year, he had a 135 quarterback rating, went for 7.2 yards per attempt, had 19 touchdowns, 10 picks, and went for 2,136 yards. Now, he's trash, but the other guy is going to be an all-star.
Exactly. RJ, he couldn't start for a team who ran about 90% of the time.
It's cool though, man. But I got a question for y'all, man. I got a question for y'all. Y'all have Josh Heupel. He said, y'all have a quarterback guru out there.
Hey, you saw what no-hip DB we had got an interception on y'all. And no-hip DB.
The funny thing is, like, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can't. This is the same thing as what we talked about the media. We got to be careful what we're listening to because people really don't know. They're just guessing, and we give them so much credence, but they really don't know. Now, both of these guys were pretty high. Joe Milton was pretty highly touted, right?
Yeah,
out of high school.
Yeah.
And so was Graham Mertz, right? Both highly touted quarterbacks, both getting their big starting year ahead of them. I would say that's a good question. The Tennessee talent and the Florida, are they similar in talent this year, or are they vastly separated?
I think if talent-wise, I think we're right on par. But I just feel like our scheme right now, our system we're running is better than what you guys are doing. That's the only reason why I feel like
I agree. Your system is built. Yeah. Your system is built to make a quarterback shine. I agree with that. Now, I will say, and Gator fans will agree with me, last year we saw plays drawn up that we should have had done a certain way, but we were so athleticism quarterback friendly. Like we basically ran jailbreak every hike, jailbreak. Anthony, what are you going to do? That was kind of like our offensive game plan last year, and anything was acceptable because of his upside. This year, I think we're going to play more of a system quarterback play. Is that fair to say, David? Larry, what do you guys think?
You guys are going to really see what Billy Napier is as a coach this season. I feel like, you know what I'm saying, like with his system he's trying to implement at Florida with Graham Mertz, because Graham Mertz, like you said, doesn't have the athleticism to cook like Bryce Young. You know what I'm saying? It makes it out of nothing. You know, so you guys are going to have to run a system that's gonna benefit Graham Mertz. You know, so.
Yeah. Do you think that's a breath of fresh air for Billy Napier? I think that's a breath of fresh air kind of for Billy Napier.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think Billy Napier's really good at like adjusting to like a quarterback's strengths, even during the season. I mean, the beginning of the season, obviously we saw Anthony Richardson, he was running and all that. I think he kind of did get hurt in that Kentucky game. They kept it out on the down low, and you didn't really see him running a lot. And I guess like it was towards the end of the season. I think it was after the end of the season. somebody even said that like they asked Anthony Richardson not to run because of that, because he was kind of banged up, and they asked him not to do that. But then you go towards the end of the season, he started running a little bit more, and then obviously Trevor and Montrell Johnson, they were kind of doing the heavy load work anyway in the running game, so that wasn't an issue. But that was the only thing that really like kind of spiraled Florida, was the fact that Anthony Richardson, he could throw it to the right guy. The problem was he couldn't throw it accurately. That was the problem. So
in the Kentucky game, I think he experienced a lot of success week 1. I spoke to him and I'm good friends with his agent, spoke to him. And when we broke down what happened in that game, the big thing was he just let all of it get to him too much. Remember his Heisman odds went up like 500%, something crazy after the Utah game. I think the noise kind of got involved just a little bit. And honestly, I think that was it. If I'm being honest on this right now, I'd say the noise. But you did see him get better as the year progressed. The interceptions went way down. His FSU game was a great game. He played an amazing game at Tennessee. But it was still some youthful stuff. Remember, he only played 13 games in college. The least tenured quarterback to be drafted in the first round since 2000 is Anthony Richardson. Like the least tenured in college since 2000. That's 24 years. He's the least tenured quarterback in college to get drafted in the first round. So the guy we have coming this year, 32 starts. He's almost the most tenured SEC starting quarterback. He's right up there in the top 3 of the most starts in college football. So it's going to be a nice contrast to see what we got.
Well, they talk about Graham Mertz, but Georgia fans and everybody else, but they won with Stetson Bennett. He was 26 years old.
We didn't want
that. That was a tenured quarterback. You know what? And Kirby was the smartest guy in the building for saying, I want a guy with all this experience taking these snaps. Because you know what? He's touching the ball so much. You want a guy that's been there, right? That's what I want too. Like, I'm excited to get a guy that has a ton of experience.
Yeah.
Georgia has to go with a guy that has not started. We're going with a guy with 32 starts. Their guy and their team is more talented. I don't know if their guy is, but their team is. But we have a guy with 32 starts. They have a guy with 0 starts in college football. So that's a nice place to be for us at this moment. I'm excited as a Gator fan to get somebody with experience out there. I'll tell you right now, I started college. I was a pitcher in college baseball. I started many games. I relieved in many games. There is a difference between a new guy and a guy that's been out there. Very big difference. The lights get real bright for new people. And so, yeah.
Hey, it didn't for what his name?
I'm just gonna put it out this way: is that all that Carson Beck needs to score on Tennessee, Florida is 14 points. That's it.
Oh,
we asked for to score 14 points.
Hey, Larry, did you you see you looked at the chat?
Yeah.
Joe Bowman was a new subscriber. He
he the Clemson fan. Yeah, we cool with him.
I said y'all said something.
No, I told him appreciate it for the subscription.
Okay, cool. And Chris said he'll cook Eddie. That's Chris from Georgia.
He want to come in and
he want to cook you, Eddie.
Come on, Chris. Oh
my Chris right there?
Okay, yeah.
Am I in? Am I live?
Yeah,
you're live.
Eddie, you pitch. Eddie,
everybody be quiet.
Eddie, you pitch. You were a pretty high level pitcher in college, right?
I mean, I pitched at Florida. Yeah.
Okay, so if you injured your thumb to the point where it required surgery, how good of a pitcher would you be at that point? If you injured your throwing thumb.
Oh my God! Well, you can't pitch with a bad thumb, right?
So why does Joe Milton get all this hell when he hurt his thumb in the Indiana game? If you notice, if you look at his stats, see, you mentioned his stats as a whole, but you didn't notice that in that Indiana game, he had a severe drop-off. Do you think he forgot how to play football in that Indiana game, or do you think he went from a 300-yard passer game to a 90-yard passer game? Do you think, maybe something caused that, or do you think he's just a bad quarterback?
Yeah. No, I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he's a good guy. I think he went for 10 touchdowns and 0 picks last year. He's a good quarterback.
It's amazing what coaching will do. It's amazing what coaching will do. I mean,
well, we could talk about Josh Heupel's coaching ceiling here in the next episode. But with that being said, But with that being said, I will say this: Joe Milton's a good quarterback. He went through his lumps. Remember, he didn't have a hurt thumb in 2019. You're talking about 2020, but in 2019,
he didn't start 2019.
No, I'm just saying. If I look, like okay, I mean, he barely played, but it's not like what I'm trying to say. The body of work isn't like okay, this guy's ready to succeed. I think because you would agree with this. You would say that Hendon Hooker's success with the Biletnikoff on the outside and those guys is the reason you're so hyped about Joe Milton, right?
Well, I mean,
there's really not much else to look at.
You talk about body of work. I'm hyped at Josh Heupel's body of work. I think much like Anthony Richardson was a mistake in the first round, I think anybody taking Joe Milton in the first round would be a mistake. It would be great for our program, but I think he is a quarterback that needs a good coach. But
I've been where you are with Dan Mullen. Yep, I've been where you are. I had Kyle Trask with Dan Mullen, then I had Emory Jones with Dan Mullen.
But Dan Mullen, the problem is Dan Mullen was like, I could fucking coach up my 12-year-old son to win games in the SEC, and you couldn't. Kyle Trask and Dak Prescott got him a big head, and he thought I could coach anybody to be a great quarterback, whereas Heupel will actually coach up. He's not going to give up on recruiting and development because the Jaguars turned him down. Like, that's not Josh Heupel's style. My thing is Josh Heupel's got all these good quarterbacks. Sitting there thinking Josh Heupel's not going to have a good quarterback and a good quarterback performance would be a linebacker transferring from somewhere and going to Georgia and being like, Kirby ain't going to do nothing with that linebacker. He ain't going to do nothing with that linebacker. Like, it's ridiculous to think that Billy Napier, who's not known for quarterbacks, is going to do a better job with a quarterback who crashed and burned under Chris, who had some good quarterbacks. And then Joe Milton's not going to succeed under Heupel. Like it's a silly comparison.
I think Joe Milton will be pretty good. I don't know if are you saying Josh Heupel's a better coach than Dan Mullen was as far as scheming?
I think he's a better quarterback developer. That's why he's got a Heisman winner, number 1 overall pick, all that stuff as a quarterback coach or better or higher.
Sam Bradford?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean he had Tim Tebow.
He wasn't. Sam Bradford. So he wasn't the head coach. So Dan Mullen had Tim Tebow, but you're picking Sam Bradford.
Okay, I'll give you Tim Tebow. I forgot about him. I mean, if you want to have a running back that could throw the ball as your prestige quarterback, that's fine. Sam Bradford got picked up on his arm, not because he could possibly play tight end or safety. Like,
oh, he got a little mouth.
Hey, I love this show.
I mean, nobody picked Sam Bradford up, and they're like, "Well, if he sucks, we'll make him the tight end." Like, nobody said that about Sam Bradford when they drafted him.
Well, they did say he was trash, and he like the Eagles.
If Sam Bradford wasn't made out of glass, he was rookie of the year. He had an All-Pro second year, and then he fell off because he was made out of glass. Like, nobody can coach durability. Like, that's just something you're born with.
No,
I don't want to turn the podcast into spaces because I know that's kind of where we're headed with
there, Eddie. It does.
But I will say, like, if we were looking at Josh Heupel's coaching prowess versus Dan Mullen's, if that's kind of what we were looking at, Dan Mullen's coaching prowess is way more impressive than Josh Heupel's so far. And I'm looking at the stats right now. I'm looking at his. Looks like he was 3-2. He's 2-3 in his all-time bowl career. He coached at UCF under a Scott Frost built team. He progressively got worse. He started at 12-1, then he went down to 10-3. Then he ended up at 6-4. Then he got the hell out of town with Danny White and shook it over to Tennessee. And so now with you guys, he got better, but that was with a Biletnikoff and Hendon Hooker. And we still don't know what Milton's going to bring to us now that he's the man. That's all I'm bringing there. Now, I do like what Milton did. He went 10 touchdowns, 0 picks in his limited time last year. And you do have Brew McCoy, and I love that guy, and I like Squirrel. I like what you guys got going on. There's some seriously good smoke at Tennessee. I love it. I love the guy you have behind Milton. I think he might be the next Caleb Williams type. Like, Nico is the real deal, I believe. There's no questioning that. But it's going to be interesting because we downplay Billy Napier's offensive scheme, but Gator fans that have watched the tape and we look back, we don't hate what we saw. We hated the execution of what we saw. The play call was not a problem at Florida at all. And we went down to the last play with Anthony Richardson in Knoxville last year. Like, the play call was not the issue. The issue was the execution of the play call. And with that being said, we didn't have a quarterback that was 24 that started 32 games in college at the time, but we had a first rounder with a ton of athletic ability who could very well be an amazing NFL quarterback developing into that. But, that time will tell. So I'm excited to see what we got. I'm excited to play you guys. I feel a lot more confident this year than I did last year going into Knoxville. I feel like we're a little bit more stable right now, you guys coming into the Swamp.
We'll see. I mean, Anthony Richardson, he did go off. I mean, he threw like 55 passes and had 2 touchdowns, so not a great rate. But we'll see. I mean, I fear Anthony Richardson more than I do Graham Mertz, and I think anybody would say that.
Richardson also had almost 500 yards passing too.
Yeah, on 50-something. I mean, 50-something attempts.
He wasn't meant to throw touchdowns that game. He was meant to run touchdowns and running backs running touchdowns and things like that. But anyway, it came down to the wire. You guys are coming to the Swamp. I'm excited to have you guys in town. And I promise you, we won't ask Graham Mertz to win the game on his shoulders. That won't be what you're going to see when you come visit us. It's going to be a multitude of running backs coming at you guys too.
I think we held them to some of their lowest averages of the year, but sure, run it up.
This is why I'll come in there with that game. I looked at that game in Knoxville, and I think we did a damn good job on y'all run game. Now, we didn't do a damn good job on Anthony Richardson. Anthony Richardson told us to hell up. But that run game, we did a good job on Trevor Etienne and Marcus Johnson. Now, I will say that now this game, I know these guys, that was what the 3rd game of the season, so they ain't established themselves yet. This time we play y'all, they're already established as one of the top running backs in the SEC. So I definitely want to see what we look like in the next matchup, Heupel versus Billy. And I remember the first game, Billy almost got to fighting with one of the refs. I thought that was hilarious. The 1 yard.
The funniest takeaway from that game was like the ending. When we got the onside kick, I was thinking in my head, is Tennessee going to mess this one up one more time?
Hey, DeJuan Black. Was it DeJuan Black, David? Am I remembering that right? DeJuan Black recovered.
I just had a feeling y'all
win the
game. Y'all got that darn.
But I think a lot of that was
here it goes.
Like everybody talks about coaching mistakes and what coaches learn and whatnot. I think Heupel learned in that game that in the SEC, especially with equally talented teams, you can't take your foot off the gas. And I think the Heupel took his foot off the gas, and then you didn't see him do that. If he could score, he kept scoring. There was no.
Oh yeah. I think
we lost.
4 minutes left.
Agree with what he was saying.
Now 6 games later, you got people, y'all scored too much on Missouri. You guys are bullies. And it's like, okay, bro, what do you want? Do you want us to make every game close, or do you want us to blow the fuck out of everybody, like blow them out of the water? Like, what do you want? Like, there's no in between. Like, and Heupel's not going to do that again. So if you're going to take your shot, I think you're going to have to take it early, or he's just going to run away with the game.
Brew McCoy scares me on the outside. I like Brew McCoy a lot. He scares me. I ain't going to lie to you.
Yeah.
I like like I said, I agree with Chris Sam, because there was a point in time we did go up 38-21 in that game, and he did take the foot off the gas and start trying to run the ball and run the clock out, and which helped you guys come back in that game. Not saying that there was nothing wrong that we did. We just we got to keep our foot on gas. We play Florida, and Florida never gonna go away. You know what I'm saying?
I think you have to have a solid. Now I'm talking my shit. I don't know what Mertz is going to be. We'll see. Like, a coach change. I mean, it fixed Hendon Hooker. Hopefully it fixes Joe Milton. It can fix Graham Mertz. I'm not going to sit here and be a total homer on that. We'll see what he is. But you have to, like, even like Stetson Bennett, like we like to give Stetson Bennett. He went off. He went clutch. They scored enough to beat us. But, like, Alabama, we were beating the dog shit out of Alabama until they let Bryce Young do what he wanted. They had good running backs. But we were beating them by 18 points, and then they were like, all right, man, we ain't going to beat this team running the ball. We've got to start passing it. And they made it a close game. You're not going to beat us without a quarterback. If you've got Will Levis at quarterback, sorry, RJ, you're gonna lose 6. If you have a running back at quarterback like LSU did, we're going to beat the dog shit out of you.
Hey, I will tell you this. We go like our DB department goes. I don't think the game's going to be won or lost of Graham Mertz. I really think that he's mature enough as a quarterback. With what he's going to be asked to do that game, he will not be the win or the loss. The win or the loss will be Jason Marshall lining up against Brew McCoy and on the opposite side of the ball with Squirrel and all that stuff, that is going to be our chance to win. We're not going to stop you guys. You guys are going to get your points. We got to at least slow you down on what you guys want to do. And that will be our game right there. If you put up 38, we lose, man. I'm not going to pretend to sit here and say that we're going to win that game. You put up 38 points on us.
Who are you replacing Dean with? Because I think that was a bit like with Alabama. If you have a slow safety, Tennessee is going to roast you. Like
any TV's better than Dean.
But that's what I'm asking.
Our
is just
strong
speed.
safety is probably Kamari. Kamari and Miguel Mitchell are probably going to be our two safeties back there to start, and then we have
Kamari's pretty quick.
RJ Moten.
RJ's our number 2 probably on Miguel Mitchell's side on the strong safety side, Jordan Castell. I mean,
like I didn't expect Dean to like run like a 4.4. Like I knew he wasn't the quickest dude, but his 40 time like it was honestly like my jaw dropped. I was like, you were that slow when you were starting. Like, what happened to him? Because there's no way you run a 4.7
I had posted a stat. I looked
at
at
high school, and everybody wants to believe. I mean, Anthony Richardson cut off nearly half a second off his.
You in a portal, man.
He's like lagging out or something. But I remember I had posted a stat on Twitter about like who's giving up the most yardage after the Tennessee game, and it was Trey Dean. It was at the safety spot. And I said, look, I like Trey Dean, whatever, but I think we need to try something different at that spot. Like, I don't know whether you replace somebody or you put him in a different spot. I don't know how that scheme works. He sent me a DM pissed off. He was mad.
Yeah.
I will say though that Tennessee do have 4 wide receivers that I feel like people are going to respect this season. I just feel like we got Squirrel White, Ramel Keaton, who had a good game against you guys. Ramel Keaton, and we had Dante Thornton, who people don't know what Dante Thornton's going to be in this offense. And I think he's going to be running that higher role by taking the top off teams. And Squirrel White can do the same thing too. And obviously, you guys know Brew McCoy. He's the bruiser of the bunch. So I just feel like we got 4 wide receivers people going to respect. I think people are sleeping on our tight end room. We can make plays from the tight end room. We haven't been using them really, but we used it a little bit when we played y'all. I think Preston Farm made a couple plays. I know he made a big 3rd down catch against y'all. It was like a 3rd and 10 on that 99-yard drive we had on y'all. But other than that, we have an ex-defensive coordinator, so that's going to be interesting to see him learn and take what you guys are trying to do.
Yeah, hot mic.
Okay. Oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, go back out. Yeah, go back out.
Yeah, I was saying we have an ex-defensive coordinator in Austin Armstrong, too, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Hold on, who is that? Hold up.
It's your mic.
Hey, Franker said you can't spell citrus bowl without UT.
Shit, Florida would suck a hobo dick for a fucking Citrus Bowl right now. They would be excited for the Citrus Bowl.
Man.
They out there trying not to get shut out in the Las Vegas Bowl. Y'all talking about Citrus Bowls. Get out of here.
Hey fellas, I gotta roll. I gotta play catch up my son. But man, I love you guys. Go Gators. I'm gonna see you guys on Spaces. I'm gonna see you on the timeline. Man, I'm excited about football. What do we got? 40 days left.
Yeah, we got like 40 days left for football. 48, something
Eddie's
about that.
like an alien.
Here's your mic.
My mic checked up. Later, guys.
Appreciate it, Eddie.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go here a little bit too. So
yeah, we can kind of wrap this up, man.
Yeah, we wrap it up.
I mean, if y'all got anything else though, man, I mean, I'm more than willing to stay, answer whatever.
Okay. How you feel about what you think we land in recruiting? What you think?
Right now, I kind of looked at it. Alabama's going to pass up because they've only got like 14 commits. They're already at number 5. They're going to get more than 14, and they're going to probably be pretty elite recruits when they get them. So I would assume somewhere 4 or 5, depending on what Texas A&M does too. Maybe USC. We could land in that 4 or 5 spot. Like, it just depends on who we pick up. I kind of know maybe who we're going to pick up here in the future, and if that happens, then I think we can stay in that 5 spot. I do know Alabama's probably going to pass us. I don't know about Michigan. Michigan may not hold on to that either up there too, but I would say I think we're at 275 right now. If we can reach like 290, close to that 300 range. Most top 5 teams get in that 290, 300 range. So I think maybe that could be probably the pinnacle of what we can do in this cycle, depending on, I mean, you never know how it's going to shake out during the season either. I mean, there could be flips, there could be anything else, but it's just like with what I know that what we're getting now, I would assume we at least finish 290. And actually, even if you finish 290 and you don't make it into the top 5, that'll be the highest rated recruiting class that we've had in over a decade. Like the last time we hit 290 was in 2013, and that was Will Muschamp. So I think he had 291. So I wrote an article on that too. So I did put Urban Meyer's class in there just to just because of how good we were recruiting, just to kind of compare it. And that was like in 2010. He was at 324. I don't see us reaching 320 or anything in that that range. But if we can reach into the 290s, that is a significant improvement from over a decade. So I'll be happy with that, no matter where our ranking goes or where it's at. But if we reach 290, it's probably gonna be like 5, 6, 4, depending on who gets what and everything else and how everything shakes out. But Alabama will pass us. That is going to happen. A&M could pass us too, but or USC or something like that. It just depends on how it shakes out and what recruits they actually do get towards the end of the cycle.
Bro, I'm watching my Dogs win a natty right now against TCU. It's crazy.
Oh my God!
You know what was funny about that game too? It was so like mismatched. Like I think it was like 38-7 at halftime, and I stayed and watched it just to see how bad Georgia was going to blow them out.
Yep. I did too, bro.
I did too. I told people. My mom was like, she was like, "You going to the bar to watch the game?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm not gonna watch it here at home." I was like, "I'll probably be back pretty quickly. The game gonna be over with probably by halftime." I literally told her that. Like I knew they were gonna get killed. I was like, "Man, they ain't."
People were picking them and all that. So.
Because even I said on the podcast y'all were gonna blow them out, bro. But I didn't think y'all were gonna do 65 to 7.
I ain't think we're gonna do that. I ain't think we're gonna do that. But
I said 24. I said 24 points. That's what I said going into the game.
I said 40. I think I said like 40 to like 20, 24. I thought they were gonna get like 20 on y'all. Other than that, they only had 7, bro. If they scored on the first drive, and y'all said, "All right, it's time to lock in."
If you go
they
back,
had to do a what do they call it? A crossing route, and I confused our DB, and that was it.
Whatever that did, bro, they cut y'all on, bro. Y'all was on
funny
point the whole game.
Like Georgia's players were so much bigger, athletic, and taller. All Stetson Bennett had to do was throw a 50-50 ball to him. They would have caught it. Yeah. But I was looking back at that TCU Michigan game, and it took a lot of mistakes for Michigan to even TCU to pull off that victory. I think Michigan would have been the better. I still think Georgia would have won, but I think Michigan would have been the better opponent to play them in the national championship. But when I look back and watch that game, I was like, dude, there's no way TCU's beating Georgia at all. And of course, right off the bat, now they did score right at the beginning, but I was like, dude, I don't think that's going to hold up for a while, and it didn't. So it was a really funny game to watch. I was texting all my Georgia buddies that live in Georgia here with me, and I was just like, I told you guys that it was going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
What is your SEC team this season?
Texas A&M.
No, I'm gonna shout. I've said this, and I say it right now. It's gonna be Kentucky. I don't know why. I don't know how. I feel like
I could see it because I like that Devin O'Leary guy, man. I think he's gonna shock some people, man.
I think them getting their OC back. They got their OC back that made their quarterback.
No. They still ain't got no receivers, man. They still ain't got nobody to throw to, really.
Who?
You said Kentucky, right?
Yeah.
They ain't got no receivers, man. They ain't got nobody to throw to, really.
They got pretty good receivers. They just don't have everything else is sus, maybe. But I think that's good sleeper.
I'm still going with Texas A&M. They too talented to be winning 4 games. Like ain't no way.
If
Evan Stewart, man, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that boy can play.
Then they got a third wide receiver that's nice too.
What name? Joe Petrino. If they don't bump heads, he just let him coach.
Who they running backs? They got anybody know?
I don't even know.
No, I don't know, man. I'm pretty sure they probably good.
Yeah, I mean they had A-Chain last year, and he was,
A-Chain was good too.
Yeah, like I don't know how they only won 5 games. Like I don't understand it.
Bro, they had no quarterback. Who had quarterback? Wigman?
Yeah, Wigman.
Yep.
Okay, he might be all right. They talented though. Let's see.
Running back.
They could start the freshman. I forgot they had Ruben Owens.
Yeah, Ruben Owens.
Ooh.
But yeah, we're gonna wrap this thing up, man. I gotta head to the gym, man. Give me a word.
Yeah, we can wrap it up. That's it, man. Dave, I appreciate you, man, coming on, man, kicking it.
Appreciate it, bro.
I enjoyed
Yeah,
that.
appreciate it, man.
Appreciate y'all, man.
Most definitely.
Anytime you
All
want me on, man, just send me a message. If I can swing it, I'll come on.
Okay. All right.
Oh yeah,
Appreciate you,
man. Even needs some help in here, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need some help. Man.
Even needs some help, man.
All right,
All
y'all.
right, man. All right, thank
Bye,
you.
y'all.
All right.
Wrap for the love of the game.
All right, man. See it.
Appreciate my man. All the subscribers. Appreciate y'all tuning in. All right.